Good afternoon. Let's do some business. We are doing it live now, weekday afternoons at 4 o'clock. We get right down to business here with the news-driven hour right after Ben Shapiro and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek on Money, live on the air on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and the on-demand Mottek on Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Well, the new week begins with inflation and stagflation concerns back in focus. Stocks closed mostly lower today as we await the next inflation report that'll be coming out this week. The Dow came in for a closing loss of 81 points today. The S&P 500 down 1 point and the NASDAQ down 47. We've been hearing recession talk for more than a year now. The recession wait's been a long one, convincing many forecasters to change course and view a soft landing as likely for the economy in this current environment. As MarketWatch notes, it's been 561 days now since the first inversion of short-dated 3-month Treasury yields compared with their 10-year counterparts, which we mentioned here, a sign that Wall Street thinks a recession does lurk on the horizon that would trigger the Fed interest rate cuts. But the average length of prior inversions for those two plots on the Treasury yield curve has been 589 days since 1962, according to analysts speaking out today. New worries in the restaurant business here in California. Already we've seen many restaurants cut jobs and hike prices due to the new $20 an hour minimum wage as of last month, up from $16 an hour. Many restaurateurs furious about a new California law now that will ban restaurants from charging consumers so-called junk fees on the check. That bill was signed into law by Governor Newsom last year. And starting July 1st, it'll ban most businesses from charging hidden fees. The law mandates fees must be included in advertised prices, including service fees and any other surcharges, so expect menu prices to go up. I'll talk about that with Angela MARSDEN later this hour, small business hero and owner of the Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill in Sherman Oaks. On taxes this afternoon, what does the Biden administration's push to create a global tax system mean to you and your business? And what about this organization that does not answer to Congress that's considering all this? I'll talk about that with MICHEL, Tax Policy Director at the Cato Institute. Watching the price of gold today move lower. In fact, took a big one-day drop today. Gold right now hovering at around $2,343 an ounce, dropped by more than $32 today to $2,343 an ounce at the close. On Friday, we got the latest reading on consumer confidence. In case you hadn't heard, consumer confidence did pull back. We also heard from some Fed folks lately. Today, the latest, Fed Reserve Vice Chair Philip Jefferson, in his words, said we continue to look for evidence that inflation is going to return to our 2% target. And until we have that, he said, I think it's appropriate to keep the policy rate in restrictive territory. We also heard from Neil Kashkari last week at the Milken Institute Global Conference. He also spoke again on Friday. He's the president of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve, also former Republican gubernatorial candidate here in California. He indicated on Friday a wait-and-see stance on future monetary policy. Of course, a nervous time in the Middle East powder keg. Oil futures finishing higher today with the price of oil in New York up nearly $1 to $79.12 a barrel. And we see a Brent crude in London, the global benchmark, moving higher as well at 57 cents to 83.36 a barrel. Looks like a reprieve for EV maker Fisker today, announcing it raised additional capital from an unnamed existing institutional investors. According to MarketWatch, the shot in the arm was not enough for the stock, which remained flat in after-hours trading. The stock, by the way, is down about 98% so far this year. Now the latest on your money, the markets, the economy, inflation, the Fed, and the whole works now. Joining us live, GABRIEL Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management, based here in Southern California, and author of Wisdom on Value Investing. GABRIEL Wisdom, thanks for coming to the line to kick off the new week with us here.
Well, Frank, my pleasure. You know, we're in an election year, and if you go back and look at the data since 1952, that's as far back as the reliable data goes. We've had 18 presidential election years since 1952, and each one of those years has pretty much been positive. Even the COVID shock of 2020, while it was partially responsible for Trump's loss, certainly it was a down market until the November election, and then the market turned higher and ended the year 2020 higher. So these 4 years of a presidential cycle are very, very positive. Not as good as the third year, where we've seen a 16% average S&P 500 gain. Last year was very, very strong, as we know, but the fourth year is when the incumbent, and all of them do this, they're seeking re-election, and they do what they can to prime the pump, as it were. For the Biden administration, there might be some limited opportunities because of higher interest rates, but the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act is already creating some jobs and creating some stimulus. It supports the economy, and of course, the so-called soft landing, if we get it, and the stock market upside will be the key to the election outcome.
Election year, and also a lot of attention focused on the Fed's next move and inflation, of course, which is still running hot and impacting people. And we did see that hit on the consumer confidence reading last week, as inflation expectations also spiked among the general public, according to that authoritative consumer confidence reading. What do you see ahead on inflation this week when we get the new reading on consumer prices, and how the Fed might react to that, and what we might expect for the rest of the year?
Well, Frank, I think the Fed is going to probably do nothing. And in fact, the neutral interest rate indicator, which is it measures the balances in the economy after factoring in inflation, those neutral indicators are rising. They call them R star. But the fact is that the R star number indicates that interest rates won't just stay high this year, but they could be high for a very, very long time. They could even go higher, as Jamie Dimon from J.P. Morgan Chase suggested. He was looking at 6.5% next year. And we know these interest rate cycles have very, very long tails. One reason is demographics. We're 16% of the world population will be over 65 in another decade or so. The ratio of dependents, including retirees to workers, is rising. That would cause interest rates to rise because you need to borrow money. And then finally, the transference to clean energy, the physical impacts of climate change, that costs quite a bit of money to convert. It takes a long time. That puts upward pressure on rates.
Well, you're our star as far as I'm concerned on the air here with Gabriel Wisdom. We always appreciate you coming on the air with us live here at Gabriel Wisdom. We see gold taking a hit today, just at a time when inflation concerns are being expressed again. Of course, gold hit that record high not too long ago, pulling back more than $30 today, back down around the $2,343. What about the gold's behavior lately, and what, if anything, is that telling us?
Well, I think it's telling us that maybe the other central banks of the world, in particular the People's Bank of China, might be taking a break. Major central banks, including the U.S. Central Bank, have been accumulating gold, and they're trying to diversify away from the dollar. And, of course, gold would be a natural beneficiary. There was a Bloomberg survey that was released today, and 46% of the survey participants, nearly a third of them, certainly over a third, I would say, think that the tech behemoths would be the first choice if you want to hedge against inflation. They were citing NVIDIA, Amazon.com, Meta Platforms, these kinds of companies playing a major role in offsetting inflation. Of course, those stocks have been big winners.
On there live with Gabriel Wisdom, and it's been interesting to watch the performance of Bitcoin, which also hit a record high recently. Then we saw some wild gyrations. Right now it's close to 63,000 again. Been making some pretty big moves almost on a daily basis now. I know you're an observer of all of this. We talked to the biggest fans as well as the harshest critics of crypto here, but what are your thoughts about what's happening with Bitcoin, its performance in the face of all this, and your thoughts on where that might go?
Well, Bitcoin as an asset, it tends to be very, very popular when the appetite for risk is high. And if the meme stocks are any indication, the appetite for risk is back again. GameStop GME, it was up as much as 110% today. It paired those gains, I think, up 70%. But I mean, this is a company that, you know, is a problem. It's a sort of a zombie operation, but it has very high short interest, which means lots and lots of investors are betting on a decline. And so when promoters suggest to individual investors, you know, buy these meme stocks, GameStop in particular, it forces the short sellers to sell at a loss. Otherwise, their losses keep rising. In fact, year to date, short sellers have lost close to $1 billion in these kinds of stocks. Another one today that was a short squeeze meme participant was the theater chain operator AMC. It was up, I think, around 50%. So how does this bode for crypto and assets that don't pay you any interest? Well, pretty supportive.
Very interesting. Yeah, those meme stocks, both of those that you mentioned, roaring back. In fact, largely driven by social media. In fact, one report I saw shows that shares of AMC Entertainment Holdings rallied, and GameStop also skyrocketed. And it was noted that the rally appears to be driven by the return of Keith Gill, also known as Roaring Kitty, to social media. Over the weekend, this guy whose analysis of GameStop created a national phenom, 3 years ago now, made his first post on Twitter back then. The post on X today indicated that he is paying attention. So now we need to all pay attention to that once again, as the meme stocks have suddenly roared back into play.
Absolutely. And this fellow you mentioned, Gill, calls himself Roaring Kitty. I'm not sure what that's about. Roaring Kitty on X. He did eventually testify before Congress about this massive short squeeze that occurred in January 2021 and the harmful effects of it. But he's back. Yeah.
Now, what about the Magnificent Seven? You touched on those big cap tech names a moment ago. NVIDIA, of course, leading the charge, known as the Magnificent One. Any thoughts and any favorites in that group at the moment?
Well, I think they all benefit from perhaps this new tariff shock that's coming. There's a decision from the Biden administration to implement some additional tariffs and not roll back the Trump era tariffs. And this is a big shift in the current president's domestic industry policies. And what are they going to double and triple and quadruple the rate of tariffs on? It's Chinese electric vehicles, it's clean energy goods, medical supplies. It's the sorts of things that require high performance chips and a lot of technology. And I'm not sure whether this helps or hurts the Magnificent Seven, but I suggest they're smart enough to get on the winning side of it.
All right, we've seen the EV names under tremendous pressure, including Tesla, by the way. Looks like that stock is hovering around just shy of 173 here at the moment. Fisker in the spotlight today. Looks like they've received a lifeline, a financial lifeline. The stock is down about, 98%. What are your thoughts about the EV space here at the moment?
Well, very exciting area. However, I think the EV names have stalled because of range anxiety, the infrastructure, the charging station networks, which Elon Musk had decided he wasn't going to invest more in, and then now he's decided he will get back on board a Tesla charging network expansion. I mean, this creates uncertainty for the buyers, and then Chinese automakers, EV component makers coming out of China have flooded the market, which Congress has been complaining about. And then if you look at all the ambitions in EV and chips and other areas needed to support AI and all things electric, we have a pending energy shortage. According to the sources I've relied upon, we're going to need somewhere between $5 and $7 trillion of investment in energy. A number of utility companies are already saying that they're They're preparing for this. They're worried about it. They're raising money.
On there live with Gabriel Wisdom with American Money Management. At this point, Gabriel Wisdom, let me ask you the big question here. Where are you putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Frank, there is a definite seasonality to these presidential election cycles. And from a sector standpoint, over the past 50 years, the financial services, the banks, brokerage firms, all financial, the payment services companies, and the energy sectors have been the top performers during presidential election years. Again, this goes back some 50 years. The technology sector, which has certainly been the top performer, if you look at that same 50-year period, during election years, it's one of the worst performing market sectors, and we see it in the prices of some of the Magnificent Seven stocks, certainly Tesla. They're all sort of hitting some headwinds, but in the long run, post-presidential election years, technology wins again. So I like financial services right now, and I like the energy sectors.
All right, and what about the bond market and these that recession signal that I mentioned? It's been a long wait, but that thing is still flashing a recession. What about that? Are you putting any weight into that, watching the action in the bond market recently?
I have, Frank. We've got a $34.6 trillion debt. That's around 120% of our of the revenue that the United States creates, the gross, national product. But this is remarkable. But at the same time, last week's Treasury quarterly refunding auction, the demand was 2.5 times the amount of 3, 10, and 30-year bonds that were offered at that Treasury auction. So with regard to the bond market, I think it remains very, very strong. Forever we've been hearing predictions about how the euro or some other currency is going to supplant the dollar as a safe haven for investors, and it keeps not happening. So how do I feel about U.S. bonds? I feel pretty comfortable with them.
Terrific. Well, Gabriel, thank you very much for those reassuring words, and for your analysis again today. We do appreciate it. That is Gabriel Wisdom, Managing Director at American Money Management and author of Wisdom on Value Investing, coming to us from his office right here in Southern California. Gabriel, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and let's get right out to the freeways now on 790 KABC. Folks, can you believe it? Summer's coming. The days are long, weather is warm, and swarms of tourists crowd the streets and freeways, and the pace may be a bit slower, but the traffic is heavier. You might be traveling, but with travel, you're driving in an unfamiliar place, and while you're having fun in paradise, unfortunately, accidents can happen. Now, if you've been hurt in an accident at home or away from home, don't let it ruin your trip or your summer. Call the compassionate team at Fielding Law Firm. Clark Fielding understands the disruption and frustration that comes with being injured in an accident that was not your fault. Clark is dedicated to getting you the justice and compensation you deserve, whether it's a car accident, slip, trip, fall, dog bite, any kind of personal injury. Fielding Law is here to fight for you. Clark Fielding and his team of legal sharks at Fielding Law will help carry the burden so you can focus on recovery. You'll be treated like family. Fielding Law is a local firm that is familiar with our freeways and troubled spots. Clark Fielding lives right here, too. Don't let your summer be overshadowed by an accident. Call Fielding Law now for a free consultation so you can focus on getting back to enjoying life under the sun. The number is 833-88-SHARK, 833-88-SHARK. Your path to brighter days ahead. ClarkTheSharkLaw.com.
I've seen fire and I've seen rain.
790 KBC welcomes. Yep, you guessed it, James Taylor coming to the Hollywood Bowl May 29th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you are caller 9. Call right now, 1-888-795-2222. Mottek on Money continues here, 790 KBC. Mixed finish to the day on Wall Street to kick off the new week. The Dow coming in for a closing loss of 81 points, pulling back 81 to 39,431. The S&P 500 down a point, at 5,221. The NASDAQ gained 47 at 16,388. The price of gold saw a big one-day drop today of $32. Right now, rebounding slightly, and after hours here, up 70 cents to 23.4370 an ounce. Oil moving higher, up 5 cents to 79.17 a barrel in New York. The yield in the 10-year note, which impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates out there, now at 4.49%. Copper has hit a 2-year high. Taking a look at some of the movers today, we see Apple up in a mostly down market. Apple up more than $3 at $186 and change. NVIDIA still on a roll, up $5.21 at $903.99. Google up 49 cents at $169 and change. Netflix up nearly 6 at $616.59. Checking the cryptos now, Bitcoin moving around, down about 300 now at 62,850. Ethereum down 6 at 29.47, and Doge at 15 cents. And now the latest news for you here on 790 KABC. Mottek Money continues here, 790 KABC. Big changes in the restaurant business. Have you been served by a robot lately? That's happened already quite some time ago. One of the highlights of the Milken Institute Global Conference was being served an iced latte by a robot. That was pretty cool. It looks like some restaurants are now testing out fryer robots and automated drink dispensers. And, of course, the good old iPads are out there in a big way. Now, new worries in the restaurant business, which could accelerate some of these changes. Already we've seen many restaurants cut jobs and hike prices due to the new $20 an hour minimum wage as of last month, up from $16 an hour. Many restaurateurs now furious about a new law that's coming up here that will ban restaurants from charging customers so-called junk fees on the check. The bill was signed into law by the governor last year, and starting July 1st, it will ban most businesses from charging hidden fees. The law mandates fees must be included in advertised prices, including service fees and any other surcharges. Let's bring in Angela Marsden now, small business hero and owner of the Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill in Sherman Oaks. Angela, thank you very much for coming to the line. We greatly appreciate it. How's everything going there?
Hey, Frank. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Wonderful to have you with us. Your reaction here?
My reaction is, once again, I keep trying to tell people this is a silent tax on the consumer, because literally people are going out of business. They cannot take all of the minimum wage and now the junk fees. And I want to speak clearly here, because sometimes I get very upset and I get very heightened. And because I'm seeing the small mom and pop restaurants, my friends, and myself look at possibly going out of business. You take the junk fee. I did not put a service fee on my product. I had considered it, but then I knew that this was probably going to happen, so I didn't do it. But I know at least a couple restaurant owners that in December and January, they didn't want to do it, but they had to do it. They offered health insurance, and then there was a little bit extra for operational costs, and it saved their butt. So now you've raised the minimum wage, for which this is a question I get asked a lot. So I just want everybody to think this out clearly. No, I'm not McDonald's. I don't have a bunch of chain restaurants. But if you can come out of high school with no skill, if you can come into this country, not speak English, and not have any skill, and get $20 an hour at McDonald's, what do you think my cooks should earn? I mean, I already pay my cooks some of the highest wages in the Valley. People assume because I'm saying that, it's because I don't want my cooks to be paid well. Well, the wellness that they're getting paid is now going to be worth less, because minimum wage went to $20 an hour. When new cooks come by looking for work, they're wanting $25 to $26 an hour. What does that mean? That means your favorite Cheers pub, Pineapple Hill, is going to be over $20 for a hamburger. So you've got to weather that. That price hike just went up. All the restaurant friends I have raised their prices in April to make up for that and are giving higher wages in the kitchen. Guess what? Now they got to get rid of the service fee. The service fee is not making anybody rich. What I don't understand is why this governor doesn't attack the corporations. Is my service fees and charges that the credit card companies charge me so you can use your debit card, are they going to go away? Because Pineapple Hill pays $30,000 a year in credit card service fees so that you guys can use your debit card and your credit card. And we're being robbed so much that we can't ask for cash because we're getting robbed so much and nobody's going to jail. So a lot of people have went straight to credit cards. I was speaking to a very wonderful, professional woman in the business that oversees 5 different restaurants that people would love, and I won't mention the name. They have one restaurant, they have high volume, that has $15,000 a month in credit card fees they have to pay so everybody can use their credit card and debit card. Did the governor address that? Did he go after that? They don't want to pass that fee on to you, but between minimum wage, food inflation through the roof, and credit card fees and 35% to Grubhub, there's nothing left. By the time we pay the labor, pay the food, pay the Grubhub fee, pay the credit card fee, our margins were 3 to 4%, they're less. So people are going to look at it and go, guess what? I'm an owner, but I'm also a human being. And if I can't pay my mortgage and I can't have a sound, safe life, why am I risking everything? Why am I putting myself on the line to be sued? That's the other thing. There's an aggressive thing going on right now where attorneys are approaching employees and convincing them that they can get workman's comp. So let me tell you, my liability that went from $16,000 to $44,000 in 1 year, workman's comp is going to do the same darn thing because people are using it to make money and they don't defend us. Nobody defends us for free. We don't get the free attorney. So workman's comp will go up. I could have close to $88,000 a year in insurance. Will I make it through this? I don't know. It doesn't look likely, but I am very resourceful. I'm going to do all that I can because my place holds memories for people. My place cares for the community. We do fundraisers. We help the elderly. And many of the locally mom and pop shops were very involved, Frank. We give back to our community. But guess what? I can't get bulk prices because I'm one shop. I have to buy liquor at a designated place that I don't get discounts because I can't buy in bulk. And now, no service fee. I didn't have a service fee, but guess what? The people I talked to that did said we have to put it in the price of the goods. So now your hamburger is going to be $25, $26. This is outrageous. Every consumer should be going through the roof right now because you guys are going to have to pay. And if you don't pay, you're going to lose your favorite mom and pop shops. It's going to be corporations and people that, our bar groups and restaurant groups are going to be the only people that might have a chance. And even they look at it and go, what's the point? It is sad. It is sad what this governor is doing. And he always pits the landlord against the tenant, the worker against the employee. And he acts like he's doing everybody a favor. But what he is doing is passing on a tax and putting the real people who care about California out of business, not the corporations. And that's how I feel about it. And I wish people would educate themselves, take a look into it. Carl's Burger King. I had a customer paid for a Whopper combo, $17 at Burger King. At Burger King. So what do you think I have to charge to keep my doors open? And I'll show anybody what I make. I make what's considered low income as an owner, and I take all the liability. Low income. I have friends of mine that aren't even taking a salary. They're trying to sell their place. They can't even pay themselves. So I don't, it's a sad day for LA. It's a sad day. I just cannot wait until this governor is out of office. He's just continually attacking the mom and pop shops. This is what America is about. First generation people come from China. They come from Vietnam. I was a single mom. I was able to accomplish the American dream and have my own little shop. Well, guess what? The American dream isn't in California anymore. Not for entrepreneurs, not for small mom and pop shops. And nobody seems to be waking up to that. And the charm and beautifulness of California that I loved when I came from Indiana, which is all the boutiques and the creative artists and the creative little restaurants. And it was like this great little community of independent entrepreneurs and artists that changed the scene for the world are literally being driven out and erased from California based on this man's decisions. And that's how I feel about it. And, I get a lot of flack for what I say, but I need people to know the truth. Those fees were not to make any rich. They were trying to compensate for how they are gouging and taking everything from us. That's what those fees were for, so that we could remain, to keep the doors open so people could come in. We fight every day just to keep our doors open since COVID. Since COVID, I don't know what's happened, but I'm working with LA County Small Business Office. By the way, amazing, amazing, amazing. One government thing that is amazing. They're doing whatever they can to help. And you know what? They need more money given to them to help the small businesses. They got like a little pittance of dollars to go towards the small businesses. There is nothing and no one helping us at all. And there hasn't been since COVID. You know, you want to forgive student loans? Fine. Why don't you forgive the loans that we've been forced to take out that we're trying to pay back because we were forced to shut down? Why aren't the business loans from COVID being forgiven? I mean,
that's another excellent point. Angela Marsden. Angela Marsden, thank you for speaking the truth and for laying it on thick, as you always do, and we appreciate it. I hope your message is heard loud and clear. And for those who want to support you and your restaurant, tell us exactly where you're located so that people can show their support for you. Give us the address there, please.
I'll tell you what. I have not raised my hamburger, so my hamburger is still $15.95. The prices are going up next week. So if you get out this week, you're going to get an amazing quality meat, an amazing hamburger for less than Burger King. And it's at 4454 Van Nuys Boulevard in Sherman Oaks, California. We're the Pineapple Hill Grill and Saloon. We love LA. We love California. And I just want people to know the truth. Because one day we're all going to be gone and people are going to be like, where are they?
Angela, thank you.
Thank
you, Angela. You're terrific. Angela Marsden, small business advocate extraordinaire, frequent guest here on this program and owner of the Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill in Sherman Oaks. Live with us here, Mottek on Money on 790 KBC. Mottek on Money continues here, 790 KBC, looking out for you, the taxpayer out there. And on taxes, what does the Biden administration's push to create a global tax system mean to you and your business? And what is this Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development we keep hearing about that does not answer to Congress? Let's bring in Adam MICHEL, now Tax Policy Director at the Cato Institute. Adam, thanks very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Thanks for having me back on.
Well, take it from the top and tell us about your latest writings about the OECD, which is pushing this global tax system with the support of the Biden administration.
Yeah, the OECD is being pushed, led by the Biden administration to create what is ultimately amounts to an international tax cartel. Right now, they're targeting the most profitable U.S. businesses by trying to create a sort of one-size-fits-all international minimum tax scheme that both raises taxes on American employers and also sends that additional tax revenue to other countries around the world, actually leading to less tax revenue being realized in the United States. But even more concerningly, is this is just the first step for the OECD. They want, if they're successful here in creating a tax cartel, they want to move on to wealth taxes, to harmonizing environmental standards. This body is intent on creating one-size-fits-all policy, sort of up and down the spectrum.
And it is to be noted, it looks like the former Fed chair, now Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, seems to be leading the charge for the administration on this. It was just recently when she testified before the House Ways and Means Committee that she characterized this global tax deal as a U.S.-led effort and told Congress that we have pushed our allies to adopt the deal. So that is pretty significant. And across the board, what would taxes look like around the world?
So the Yellen has been at the forefront of pushing this scheme and developing it at the OECD, and they actually used U.S. international relations to everything short of force other countries to adopt this minimum tax as a way of backing Congress into a corner, so that Congress then ultimately will have to adopt something like this. And so that's why the piece that you just mentioned that I wrote last week calls on Congress to defund the OECD. The U.S. Congress currently supports about 20% of the OECD's budget, and whether or not you're for higher taxes or lower taxes, a Democrat or a Republican, every member of Congress should be outraged at the fact that the administration is trying to go around Congress's back to raise taxes on American businesses. And so, short of making dramatic reforms to the U.S. tax system, which is necessary, we should certainly not be funding this organization and letting the administration run circles around Congress.
Is the idea here to eliminate any tax ports in the storm? Remember when taxes went up here, U.S. companies were relocating to Ireland and places like that where the tax rates were lower. Is this an effort to try to head off that again?
That's what they claim. That's the rhetoric. Is this OECD program is supposed to eliminate tax competition. This idea that when one country has a more friendly business climate, it's actually attracting business activity there, which is exactly what you would like. Just like laboratories of democracies between the states facilitate the competition that then creates better policy environments. We see the same thing around the world, and that's what the OECD is trying to stop. They're actually trying to stop the United States succeeding at this game. In 2017, we lowered our corporate tax rate, and businesses stopped leaving the United States. And they started doing more business here domestically, hiring Americans, investing in America. And so this is the European Union's response to the U.S. making a sensible reform to attract businesses. They're now scared that they have to compete with American firms that aren't paying the highest corporate tax rates in the developed world, but instead are paying rates that are more comparable to those paid elsewhere. And so this minimum tax cartel that the OECD and the Biden administration is trying to set up is trying to undermine those tax cuts that were passed under President Trump in 2017.
And what about the multinationals who are already doing business around the world? Looks like the administration going after the big multinationals here, which, of course, lead the stock market and the global economy.
Yeah, the U.S. is home to some of the most innovative and profitable and prosperous companies around the globe, and so this is countries across Europe, elsewhere in the world, seeing the success of those American companies and wanting to get their slice. And that's exactly what this deal does. Is it essentially redistributes the U.S. tax base around the world. I think we should be striving for lower taxes across the board on big business and on small business, but the corporate income tax is the one that typically hits the largest U.S. businesses, and they respond to incentives just like small businesses do. When you raise taxes on them, they're going to invest less, hire less, have fewer resources to raise wages, and so we all prosper when the United States is competing in that global race for international investment.
Adam, thank you very much for joining us. Adam Michel, Tax Policy Director of the Cato Institute. Thank you very much for shedding light on this important story, and we'll continue to follow your articles and coverage on this and look forward to speaking with you again soon about all that. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be doing more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on Mottek on Money on 790 KBC.
How wrestling really works and how you get the ratings. Eric Bischoff and Conrad Thompson explain on 83 Weeks.
This is indeed the first WrestleMania without Vince McMahon.
I mean, it's about as horrible as it can get, but does erasing that history make it any better?
Everybody's being careful not to celebrate Vince McMahon. I think you can acknowledge him without celebrating him. I think that's the double-edged sword that everybody's sort of carrying for now.
83 Weeks on YouTube or wherever you listen.